Well, happy Monday afternoon coaching to all of our life group leaders. Our staff was out of the office this morning looking ahead and doing some sermon planning, actually up until next Easter. So we're trying to get ahead of the curve about some of the things that we're going to be working on, which is why I wasn't in the office this morning to do a Monday morning coaching. So we're doing a Monday afternoon coaching. Thanks for being flexible with us. This week we kicked off a brand new series, our Go Big series. And as most of you know, this is a series that's leading us into our Go Big campaign, which is all about where God's leading us and the vision that the elders have set for us as a church moving forward that we're really excited about. We're anxious, we're nervous about how all this is going to pan out, but we are excited about the possibilities of what God wants to do in us and through us. And so this series, Go Big, is kind of working us through a little bit of the story of Nehemiah as kind of a backdrop to help us to contextualize this campaign of what we're doing. Because there's so much that we can learn from Nehemiah and his heart and why he did what he did when he did, that needs to or should mirror our heart as we're going through this campaign ourselves. So that's what we kicked off this week. If we had to kind of put a question to the whole series for this week, it was the question why? Why do this? What is the purpose? Why do we need it? Why invest this much? Why sacrifice this much? Why go through the trouble? What's the benefit in the end? And the big answer to the question why is never going to be about a building. It always has to be about people. And so as we look through the life of Jeremiah, that's where we're starting, is that as he hears the news about people who are living in brokenness, he was so burdened by it that he had to do something. And so as we're thinking about this campaign, that's kind of the idea for us, is that everything in us, it must be driven from a burden, a God-given burden to do something about what we see in the brokenness around us. And so that was kind of the backdrop for the message this week. And so as you're thinking about it for your group, lean into them and ask them, what is it in your life that you have felt burdened by God to do something? Maybe it was another organization, or maybe it was a mission, maybe it was a family, maybe it was a child. But it could be lots of things where God kind of puts a burden on your heart, and you know, if I'm going to be faithful to a holy God, I have to do something about what I see. That's the purpose of this, the beginning of this series, is for us to all get a burden for what breaks God's heart, so that we can't not just simply sit by and do nothing. And so that's where we're beginning this whole thing. You can work through these questions. I think they're all pretty straightforward this week. If you are looking for some background to the whole story of Nehemiah, uh, in most Bibles, I think I shared this a little bit, but in the original Hebrew Bible, Ezra and Nehemiah were one book. And so you may go back to the beginning of the context of the book of Ezra. And most of your, if you have a good study Bible, it'll give you at the front of the book, um, help set the context of who wrote it, when they wrote it, why they're writing it, what's going on with that. So you can find that at the beginning of your book, if you've got a good study Bible, or you can go online. They're everywhere, and you can find out a little bit of the context to set that for the people in your group if they missed out this past week. Um, but the whole thing, again, let me just, to sum it all up, is to help us all get a burden for what breaks God's heart, and to realize that there are thousands of people in this community who are lost without Jesus. And what the elders have set out to do is to try to create a place where 5 years from now, 15 years from now, that there will be room enough for any of them and all of them to come and to get connected with Jesus. That's the whole purpose. And the burden that we feel for those who are lost is so overwhelming that we can't help but do something about it. And so that's where we're going um, with this series today. The other thing would be to talk about, and as we ended up, the idea that for 140 years the walls around Jerusalem had fallen, but nobody did anything, and everybody just became numb to it. And so I'd love for you to lean into your group, because we all do this. Nobody is exempt. We become numb to the fact that there are lost people around us. We become numb to the fact that that churches are dead and dying. We just assume that that's just the way it's supposed to be. But we want to be able to have a vision where we say that's not how it's going to be. That's not how we're going to be. But lean into your group and push into them and say, why is it that we do that? Why is it that we become so numb to all the hurt and pain around us. Numb to the fact that there are so many who are lost around us. How is it that we so casually accept that as the norm in our society? And then last thing is spend some extra time in your prayer. Maybe many of you are like me. Right now it is 4:30 on Monday, and I've not eaten for 24 hours. We've been fasting and we've been praying. Spend some extra time in your group this week praying. Again, praying for two things. Pray for a burden. That we begin to see people as God sees people, that we begin to mourn for those who are lost, and then pray for an opportunity to do something about it. Maybe that's this Go Big campaign. Maybe it's something else. But at least we can do is begin to pray for God to give us an opportunity to do something about the burden that He puts on our heart. Those are it. It's a big thing. I even ask, maybe you want to challenge your group to pray through their neighborhoods. Maybe you take half of your group and pray in the neighborhood that you're meeting at. But spend some time just praying for those couple of things. That's the big point of this whole thing. Is to fast and to pray this week as we begin this whole idea. Love you guys. Hopefully that was helpful. I'm rambling a little bit, reiterating a lot, but we want you to press those things back into your group so that we can all do it and obey it. So love you guys. Have a great week. We'll see you soon.